Welcome back to Real Side Radio. Dave Sussman here in the chair on the GCN and Salem Radio Network. We are on 57. Are we 57 now, Cody? 50, close to 60 stations across the fruited plain. And as you are in one part of your eyeball, you're looking at the Bloomberg takedown fiesta that is happening right now in the Democrat debate. You've got us on the air as well, and we're going to be talking about it. And I am delighted to have returning to the show a good man, a gentleman, a scholar extraordinaire, a retired military vet, a writer, a podcaster, and a former radio show host himself, and the proprietor of DaveCarterOnline.com, the man himself, Dave Carter. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. The only thing missing from that is that I should be preaching and lead singing on Sunday services, right?
I got to tell you something right now. If Pete Buttigieg has his way, he'd tell you that you can't because you voted for Trump. You're one of those bad Christians, Dave. I want to start out, first of all, because we sat in the chair tonight and the show's just started. We're here for 3 hours, and the media is absolutely just apocalyptic right now regarding what is happening on this debate. I'm going to play one clip where Elizabeth Warren, who has absolutely nothing to lose and oh so much to gain tonight where she is in the polls, going after Mike Bloomberg.
Fat broads and horse-faced lesbians.
Okay. She wasn't referring to herself, by the way. She was referring to what Mike Bloomberg is calling people, and she is stating that as a Democrat, she does not want to replace one arrogant billionaire in the White House with another. Is Mike Bloomberg the guy that they need to be going after right now, Dave?
Well, he's arrogant, but not for the reasons that she supposes. He's arrogant because he thinks he's smarter than everyone else and can order everyone's lives better than they can themselves. But is she what? Is she nuts? What'd you say?
Show's over, folks, because the answer is yes. Here's the crazy thing, right? Because we're in a really interesting time right now, and I've talked about this a lot on the TV show every day. But for our listeners, you know, what we are facing right now, Dave, as a country is a decision. The decision is because I think there's nobody else going to be taken real seriously in the Democratic Party right now other than the front runners. And those two front runners are a 78-year-old socialist and a 78-year-old oligarch who wants to use his billions to buy his place in the White House. How comfortable is the Democrat, and let's call classic liberals, with that idea right now?
They probably have nowhere else to go at this point except Bloomberg. Biden and the others are just tanking. They're left with the old communist, and so what's left other than that is, for lack of a better word, a technocrat.
Yeah,
and someone who is apparently a legend in his own mind. But at least he fashions himself as being more moderate than Bernie Sanders, who appears to be somewhere to the left of Lenin, I guess. I don't know.
But if you and I were flies on the wall in the DNC headquarters right now, in the basement dwelling, right, I think we will be hearing discussions along the lines of, look, they're not going to vote for a socialist, but what about the Bernie bros? All those huge supporters of Bernie, they're not going to come out to the election because they're going to think that Bernie was rigged again. He was taken out by the DNC because he is, and he will be. So what happens to whoever the front runner is if it isn't Bernie?
He loses in the general election. I think that they have sown the seeds for their own destruction, and you're absolutely correct that they know that Bernie was cheated out last time. They know that it's happening this time, and he's got a strong following, a very not very historically informed following, but they're vociferous, right? They're true believers.
Yeah, and
they're not going to be happy. They're not going to go quietly. So I think the convention itself is going to be fairly cantankerous, if not rancorous, as the way things are going now. Do you remember 68?
Well, I think I was in my mother's stomach at that time, but yes, I know the history.
Well, I was a kangaroo, but I read about it. But it was a mess. It was a mess, and not careful, they'll have a repeat of that.
So you think it's going to go brokered? You think it's going to? They're just not going to have enough to win this thing outright, and it's just going to be, I mean, 68. We looked at McGovern. We looked at a landslide in 84. Mondale won, I think, Minnesota, one state in the entire country.
Right.
That's what the Democrats are afraid of happening again this year, and to all people, to Donald Trump.
Well, yeah, but and there'll be a faction if Bloomberg does get the nomination, that we have there'll be a faction within the Democratic Party. This will be just a couple of entitled billionaires.
Yeah.
And so they will sit it out. Yeah, I don't know if you do remember, I guess, 1976 when Ronald Reagan made a forceful case and yet lost the nomination to Ford. And people just weren't that enthusiastic about that. And I think that's what will happen. If Bloomberg takes the nomination, you've got Ford. If for some reason Bernie Sanders takes the nomination, you've got McGovern in 72.
Yeah. See, okay, so there's a dichotomy in me. There's a kind of a split want on all of this, and maybe we'll carry this through the commercial because we've got a couple minutes here. But I'll present to you my premise and my quandary, and I want to get your opinion, and we can pull it apart here. And that is, yes, I would like to see Bernie as the guy because I think it will be McGovern. I think it will be Mondale, right? But at the same side of that coin, with him being the nominee, I think to myself, but holy cow, we can have a black swan event that we don't expect, an economic catastrophe that we don't expect. We can have a pandemic that we don't expect. And all of a sudden, everybody wants government to come in and take care of it. Who do we have in the left column? Bernie Sanders. And as you know, this country is fairly split down the middle. It won't take more than a few states to go in the wrong direction. And all of a sudden, we've got a communist in charge.
That's the risk. That's the risk. And so I'm not sure under the circumstances if that's the contest that I want. Part of me says there needs to be a straight up and down vote. Do we want to go the way of Cuba, of Venezuela, or not? Mm-hmm. But by the same token, you're right, if something unforeseen does happen and we go that direction, it's toast. It's done.
Yeah. Tell everybody about Dave Carter Online before we head into our first break.
That's the place where I go to have all kinds of fun. DaveCarterOnline.com is the place where you'll find columns that I've written on Ricochet and elsewhere, and you'll find a collection of podcasts and a little corner called the Inkwell, which is all my little private musings and things for the website. So it's a lot of fun, a good place to be.
Isn't that a Shel Silverstein thing, the Inkwell? What am I thinking of there?
I don't know.
Anyway, like they little boys were poured into the ink. I don't know. It's an old story. I think it was racist as well in some way. But anyway, no, you're not that. You are the provider and promulgator of an incredible amount of information. You write articles at ricochet.com, and you wrote an incredible piece, and I want to talk about that after the break here as well. Everybody check out DaveCarterOnline.com. This man is a fantastic voice to listen to, and somebody that really needs to be broadcasting a lot more. And hopefully you've got some more time now. You can start doing that. And Dave Sussman here in the chair. We will be back after the break, and we'll be updating you with some news here, and more to come at Real Side Radio. Don't go away, folks. I don't know about you, Dave Carter, but a kick in the head is definitely something a lot of people have been feeling lately on all sorts of different things. Now, listen, you gotta understand, when we take a look at the political environment, it is a wonderful resource for us to talk and get out there and broadcast and get involved in the media and write and do the things that we're doing. But life is a continual series of kick in the heads, and I've always attested that it is those that respond by getting back up when they are knocked down that make the difference between winners and losers, because everybody gets kicked in the head in life. We've got Dave Carter from Dave Carter Online who is joining us, and I really wanted to spend a little time with Dave. Good friend. You can find him at Dave Carter Online and at ricochet.com. Podcaster extraordinaire. Dave, you wrote an article that went up at Ricochet, and it's also on your website at Dave Carter Online, and it's called Renewal. And we talk about this at the beginning of a new decade, where we at the beginning of every year, we have New Year's resolutions, and we try to decide things. Most people quit them by January the 4th. But talk to me about the in your mind, the genesis of this article and where you are in your life. And I think a lot of our listeners can really relate to it, and share with them what your thoughts were after speaking with Peter Robinson, who runs Ricochet.com.
Well, it was a great conversation I had with him, and we established, among other things, that the easiest New Year's resolution that either of us could take would be to give up Brussels sprouts, because we both detest them. But I had taken a step back, as you and I talked about last time I was happy enough to be on the program, fortunate enough. I've taken a step back from current events and gotten away from the fray because I got tired of the pettiness and the fact that you couldn't say anything without people going up to, on a scale of 1 to 10, going to 1,000 on the snark meter. I was just tired of it. And so I just kind of took a step back. And I realized that I've began looking at things a little bit more over the holidays and following some events a little bit more. And I got to thinking, if you have the ability to speak coherently or to communicate things in a way that people find engaging, yeah, it's great to do that in a way that makes them laugh and makes them smile. That's its own reward. But if you're able to do so in a way that forwards or moves forward the needle on national discussions, on questions that are current, or either questions that are eternal, and you can have a good influence on people do that, then you ought to do it. I was reading a book reading it written years ago, Overdrive by William F. Buckley, and one of the things he says in it, and it's a quote: "Isn't it antisocial in the grave sense of desiring not to share? Some pleasures cannot be shared, but must one seek to share those that can, which includes insight into right reason," unquote. I think Bill Buckley was right, and to the extent that I'm able to impart a little of that, I think I have an affirmative obligation to do so and to engage the questions and hopefully tickle people's minds.
You know, you write in such a way, and everybody needs to check out this article at Dave Carter Online Renewal, and you say, do we have obligations to the author of the gifts we've been entrusted with to use them for the good? Is there a corresponding obligation to one's community, one's country? The answer seems as self-evident to me as my bald head, but not as easily managed. What is that answer?
The answer is yes, to both, to the bald head, because my hair is done by Gillette. And also, yes, there's an obligation to do that which you can to, I won't use the word exploit, I'll use the word explore and use the gifts that you've been given. And I do believe that those gifts come from the Creator. And what gifts I have, what meager gifts I have, I'd like to use for better. You remember this? We all hear the song at Christmas time of the little drummer boy, right? Mm-hmm. Little kid that walks to the manger and all he has is his drum, and that's all he knows how to do. I identify with that. My gifts are meager, but I prefer to use them for good, especially in honor of the author of those gifts.
You and I are both in media in different ways, but I think both of us like to use our voice, and we consider that voice somewhat of a gift, a talent, a desire to share our thoughts in an articulate way. We are in a really weird transitionary period right now in the industry that we're in. You've been on radio, I'm on radio, TV, with podcasters and such. And it seems to me that we are just so split now that when you and I grew up, Dave, we had 3 channels and we knew which stations we liked to listen to on the old FM AM radio station. That was it.
Right.
Okay. Today, there's 100,000 options. Are we losing a lot of those really great voices that would have had the ability to get out there in the 70s, 80s, and even 90s, and they today can't get above the noise?
There's a lot of noise for them to get above. There's more voices than ever, but I guess you could say the pool is very shallow, but not very wide, but not very deep.
Yeah.
What I do miss, and this is something that Rob Long talked on my show about, the guy who was the producer for the TV show Cheers. You used to have water cooler discussions at work. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody watched the 3 major networks, and then there was Fireline in my case. But you watch these things, and then there was a common shared experience, be it the last episode of Cheers, the last Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, his farewell was just classy. Things like that you talked about. And there was that shared drama that people had together. The closest thing we have to that now, I guess, is the Super Bowl. And that's iffy. I miss that. I miss the common foundation. Now, the good news is, as far as you and I are concerned, that common foundation included a view of the news that was tilted. And with the exception of National Review and Firing Line, there wasn't a lot until Rush came along. There wasn't a counterweight to that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got that now. But you're right; it's just tough for the best to rise to the top now.
Yeah. Speaking of Rush, by the way, I've got Bo Snerdley coming on next week. I'm going to do an hour-long sit-down with him. It's a fascinating guy. But I think you're right. I think we have, and I love, the pool is wide but not deep. There is not a lot of deep in our world right now, and I find it is a big kiddie pool, and there's a lot of urine in it, and so especially on Twitter. And if you're on Twitter, you know what I'm talking about. So the thing is, though, is that my question is, well, nothing is ever static. We're not going to be in, swimming, treading water like this. We either have to swim to the side or we're going to have to swim to the deep end. And the question is, where are we going to be in 2 years, in 5 years from now? What is the technology going to be available? Are we still going to be thinking about, the Drudge Report or some of the other big places as the water cooler today? Because that's kind of replaced the water cooler that you and Rob were talking about. Where do you see us going in the next few years?
I just don't know. I was reading a review of a book that just came out, and they were talking about how technology, in some instances, is just kind of has stagnated. Aside from smartphones and things of that nature, we all thought that we'd be in flying cars by now or things like that.
Yeah.
And it was posited that the reason that hasn't happened is not for a lack of ingenuity, but for lack of a way to get through the red tape to get things to happen. Culturally, we're stuck in rerunning the reruns. I mean, how many more versions of Batman, or all these various Star Wars the 56th chapter or whatever, at some point, I don't know what that point is, there's going to have to be some sort of original thought, don't you think? I mean, we haven't figured everything out yet, right? I mean, human nature.
That's one of the reasons I thought the movie of the year was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because you've never seen that before, right? When you get something original like that comes out in a year when I had to go see Marvel's, Spider-Man and Avengers 4 or whatever, what was that called? Final Game, and Endgame, and so thank God my kids are growing out of that now. But I'm like you, I love original content, and I think listening to you and your podcast and reading those types of articles that you're writing, that's where we're going to find this stuff. It's going to be from thinkers and deep thinkers, not wide thinkers, but deep thinkers. Everybody needs to go check out your website. Tell everybody again where to go, where they can find your great podcast as well.
Thank you, sir. It's at davecarteronline.com. And there's a place there for the podcast and the various ones that I've done. There's a place for a lot of the articles that I've written, everything from travel pieces to political pieces to funny pieces. And then there's the Inkwell. And you can find a lot of this stuff, also a lot of it, over on ricochet.com, where the podcast and the articles reside. And hopefully we're reviving the effort to get a book finished here, and hopefully that'll be done before much longer.
You and me both, my friend. Maybe we should go on a book tour together, because it's been a labor of you know what? It just when I sit down, I don't know about you, I can sit down and type for 3 hours or whatever, but then it takes another week to do it, So, Dave Carter, find him at davecarteronline.com. Thank you very much, my friend, and wish you the best of luck with everything. We'll be talking real soon.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And Dave Sussman here at Real Side Radio. Guys, don't go away. We'll be right back after the break.